Battlefield 4. Boy, what a game. From a pretty rough, glitchy launch, which took them months to fix, to a pretty good game years later. The multiplayer is pretty fun with mostly good maps and a pretty decent campaign. And when I first started playing Battlefield 4, it was in 2016 on the PS3, and I think it's safe to say I put in a good amount of time into it. It was fun, it was one of the only things I had at the time, and you had large scale battles, destructible buildings, wide variety of weapons and customization, and also a variety of game modes. There's Team Deathmatch, which is exactly what it sounds like, but instead of large scale maps, it's on shortened versions of the map, which is a pretty good thing because in Team Deathmatch it's 10v10, so it definitely keeps the action much more closer. Then there's Gunmaster, which is essentially just gun game, but you have to get 2 or about 3 kills with a weapon instead of 1. And then there's Conquest, which are large scale battles, 32 versus 32, the classic Battlefield mode. And then Rush. In Conquest, you start on opposite sides of the map and fight to capture objectives and drain the enemy of their tickets. It's kind of strategic based. If you capture an objective that's right in the middle, like in Operation Locker, you basically have already won. Or if you capture objectives that surround an enemy objective, you have them pinned. You can also control jets, helicopters, boats, tanks, though controlling the helicopters and jets can be a bit of a learning curve. It's also the thing you can never get because they're always hogged by tryhards and sweats. Okay, let's get this out of the way. Battlefield 4 is filled with sweats who do nothing but camp. Look no further than Operation Locker, the sweatiest map of the game. Everyone just rushes to get to Objective C, and whichever side gets it just blocks everything off, and it's almost impossible to try and take it. And more often than not, this is the map that comes up the most in the rotation, which means I die a lot. But the good thing is that the map after this one is Siege of Shanghai, another map that kind of comes up a lot. It's a pretty fun map, especially when fighting for the objective on the skyscraper, until it gets knocked down, covering the whole map in dust and just ruining everything. Then there's Lakang Dam. It's alright, it rarely if ever comes up for me though. And then there's Zava 3 of 11, it's another one that's here and there, it's alright. Hanoi Resort, it's one that's pretty good for sniping. The building is also a pretty good place to have a fight at, but everyone just camps on the roof, and you die every time you use the elevator because of it too. The downtown map is another one that's pretty cool, as you go from building a building, fighting it out with everyone, to that one guy with the tank ruins it. Gulman Railway is another one that's pretty good. It's alright, it rarely if ever comes up for me though. This one's another one that's alright. It's better when you're playing Team Deathmatch though, because it's centered on this area with the buildings. Then there's Parcel Storm, it's a pretty meh map. It's kind of too big for its own good, and it doesn't help with most of it being surrounded by water, and it's mostly a flat map. And when you spawn or don't have any objectives taken, you start on a boat, and good luck if there's nothing to take you to the island part of the map. Flooded is another one that's pretty cool. Granted, you stay on the roof, and you can even blow up the dam and cover the entire floor in water. There's also the DLC maps, though I haven't played much on them because they rarely if ever come up. But what is maps without players? That's why you have classes. That's right, classes, not specialists like some other games. First off, you have the Assault class, which drop medkits and revive down players. They use your basic assault rifles, which are pretty good in this game. Then there's the Engineer class, which use submachine guns like the XM4 and UMP. These guns are also pretty good in close quarters, like in Operation Locker, where its high rate of fire is good for blindly firing into the smoke that gets randomly thrown. The Engineer also has rocket launchers, which are used to damage the armored vehicles and helicopters on the map. That's right, I said damage because you're not blowing anything up with the default launcher. Then there's the Support class, which have the LMGs. They're good for supplying ammo and laying down heavy fire. The guns are pretty fun to use too, though there's not much else I have to say about this class. Then finally there's the Marksman class, which is the Sniper class obviously. The Marksman tags vehicles with the binoculars and lays down traps and explosives for armored vehicles like mines and C4. Battlefield 4 though also has bullet drop, which means you need to take distance into account before firing at someone, which is why you'll need to zone in your shot, which is just the press of a button, which is kind of a guessing game of how far they are until you unlock the rangefinder. And on top of all that, classes can use other types of weapons like DMRs, PDWs, and shotguns, which means you can use a DMR if you're a support class or PDWs if you're a marksman. It's cool, it adds extra weapons to unlock, though you have to use the corresponding class to unlock weapons in them. Like to unlock PDWs, you need to get a certain amount of points in the engineer class, or marksman for DMRs. The weapon customization is also pretty cool. You can equip quite a bit of attachments like red dots, holographic sights, different size scopes, laser sights, grips, stocks, paint. It's pretty extensive and you can keep you playing for quite a while if you want to unlock them all. But of course, being an EA game and all, some are only obtainable through battle packs. Loot boxes basically, or weapon packs for a specific gun. Luckily you unlock them over time by just playing through the game either through leveling up or leveling your gun up over time. So at least it's something. Though it's not a for sure thing you'll get something you'll actually want. Then there's the premium edition of the game, which costs $40 instead of $20. Or free if you have Game Pass for PC. It contains all the DLC released for the game, as well as premium edition exclusive stuff. Personally, my favorite map is probably Siege of Shanghai, once again because it gets pretty chaotic and it's also fun fighting for the rooftop. And most of the maps have destructible stuff. Like I mentioned before, Siege of Shanghai has the building you could blow up, Silo you could drop down this ball and destroy the middle part of the map, in Flood you could destroy the dam, in Gomund Railway you have these explosives you could randomly set off that's meant for the vehicles, but I just set them off whenever I come across them. And in the downtown map, on opposite sides of the map, there's these pressure valves that are underground that you could set off and destroy the bridge. And not to mention all the T-Rex Easter eggs that were in the game. Like here on Silo, there's a destroying of a T-Rex, and if you find all of them, you could hear a T-Rex roaring in the distance. And in Flood, there's a Megalodon, and in Operation Locker, as well as Gomund Railway. If you come to this part of Operation Locker, and here on Gomund Railway, if you look towards the mountain you could see a shining light. And if you decide to shoot at it, well... So fair to say Battlefield 4 has a good amount of Easter eggs in it. So I guess that's more or less pretty much all for the multiplayer side, more or less. You can check your stats, as well as some other Battlefield games for some reason. And you could equip dog tags and customize a player card that players will see every time you kill them. You can make one either in-game or on the Battlefield 4 website, which is still up and running, which is pretty cool. But on the single player side, there's a practice area. Oh, and a campaign too, I guess. The campaign of Battlefield 4 is more of a spin-off rather than a direct sequel to Battlefield 3, as in it's in the same world. The events of Battlefield 3 happened and in a way affect the story of Battlefield 4, and it even has some returning characters. But despite all that, it's kind of its own thing in a way. Set 6 years after Battlefield 3, tensions between the US and Russia are at an all-time high as the main antagonist, Admiral Chang, looks to frame the US in the assassination of Jin Jae, China's future leader. So you and your team are sent to Baku to find some intel. In your squad, there's your leader named Dunn. There's not much to say about him because, well, he dies after the first mission. Then there's Irish, played by the late Michael Williams, who's the most sympathetic to the civilians you come across. Then Pac, who's more of a jokester. And then there's you, Wrecker. But as soon as the campaign starts, everything goes wrong as you're pursued by Russian special forces, leading to a major fight throughout the city. Oh, yeah, looks like that year's Azerbaijan Grand Prix is cancelled. So while trying to escape, you get pursued by a helicopter and eventually lose control as it fires at you and crash into the ocean. So all of you are slowly sinking to the bottom of the ocean, and because of what happened to Dunn earlier while trying to escape, you had to cut off his legs. And with it looking like the only way out is going to be that by shooting out the window, Dunn tells you to leave him behind so the rest of you could escape. So you eventually have to shoot the window out and leave Dunn for dead. Only for it to turn out that the information you got is something all of you already knew, which is in the event of a coup, Russia would back China. So while getting debriefed, you get promoted a squad leader and get sent to Shanghai to extract some VIPs, only to find out China is already getting aid from Russia, as the Chinese citizens are rioting and getting gunned down in the streets. So eventually you reach the hotel the VIPs are staying at, after some kind of funny optional dialogue, and meet up with the VIPs who are being protected by none other than Agent Kovic, returning from Battlefield 3. So you guys quickly come up with a plan to extract the VIPs through helicopter by the rooftop, only for that to go completely wrong as one of the VIPs gets shot at and injured. forcing you to stay behind to provide cover fire as the helicopter escapes, leaving you and your squad to figure out how you're gonna get out. You eventually learn of a boat that's gonna escape with civilians on board, so you quickly make your way towards there, before being stopped by a tank that you have to take out. And for someone who's done this part a few times now, it was pretty simple. So after blowing the tank up, you get on a boat to get back to your ship, the USS Valkyrie. When you, as well as the other civilians that are trying to escape, get hit with an EMP, stopping everyone dead in the water. And Irish being Irish, tells everyone to follow them back to the Valkyrie. And with enough time and a mission change later, you wake up on your bunk. Was it all a dream? No. Everything happened. And you get told by the Marine next to you that Irish came by to look for you, but he didn't want to wake you up. So you get up to look for him, while everyone's waiting for a bigger ship to come by to take the 400 refugees you just rescued, only for it to turn out it's been attacked. So you board a rib with Agent Kovic to find out what happened, and oh man, is this the glitchiest level in the game. As soon as you hit the water in the ship, you get pushed back by something, and you basically have to fight whatever's doing it. And if you let go for even a second, you might as well just quit. Why does this happen? It happens on every version of the game. It happens on the PS3 version, the PC version, and PS4 version as well. Ugh, it's so frustrating. Well, after 5 minutes, you surface and come across 2 survivors who've been trapped after being attacked. But with time running out and being ill-equipped for the situation, you're forced to leave them as they drown. Not long after, you come across the people responsible though, the Chinese. So you fight your way through the ship and grab the recorder. As with the ship being out of range of the EMP, it has hours and hours of data being recorded of what exactly happened. Eventually, the ship breaks in half, and oh man, what a set piece. Fighting across a deteriorating deck as it tilts and everything on it sliding off. It's definitely the coolest action piece in the game. And it ends with you jumping off and entering a boat to get back to the ship, as it's also getting attacked in order to kill the VIP you rescued, only to find out that the female VIP named Hannah is capable of protecting herself. So after making your way inside and clearing the ship, Kovic gets killed and you're put back in charge. So in response to the Chinese attack, you launch a counterattack at a Chinese air hangar. Then Admiral Garrison reassigns Hannah to your squadron, and immediately Irish is suspicious and untrusting of her. Even though he was all on board with helping the survivors in the previous 2 missions. What the heck? Where does this sudden shift in character come from? So, after launching the counter-strike, you fight your way through the city in a hurricane, and boy, if this isn't the hardest level in the game. Dang it! Oh, come on. Why? Oh, come on. Dude, I'm sick of this one. You have no idea how many times I've died in this dumb tank section here. It's just unfair at times. It's just you versus a squadron of tanks, and it seems like they just hit harder and faster than you. Oh, I actually did it. Oh man, how long did that take me? But I finally actually pulled it off. And finally, after like 40 minutes of trying, we could move on to the hangar. What a joke. But on the way there, you get stuck on a car on a bridge you have to cross, and your team's unable to get you out in time before the bridge just gets obliterated by a ferry that's passing by. But everyone survives the fall, and you enter the hangar from the sewers. So after clearing out all the enemies in the hangar, you launch a flare to signal the Valkyrie to fire missiles on your location as you escape. But for some reason the car doesn't start, and oh, who's in the driver's seat? Hannah. It's only after the missile strike attack starts that the vehicle starts, but it's too late as you're caught up in the crossfire and get taken out by a missile. When you come to, you see Irish trying to wake Pack up, who looks all but dead, when Hannah comes in and orders the Chinese soldiers present to take you. Yup, she's betrayed you. And that leads us to the next mission. It starts with you and Irish getting interrogated by Admiral Chang, his only appearance in the game. He reveals that the VIP you rescued is Jin Jie, the future leader of China and the guy who's presumed dead by the Chinese, before torturing you again until you go unconscious. Then you wake up to a voice talking to you and trying to convince you to help him break out of prison. And who is it? It's Dima from Battlefield 3, who dies right after you escape. Oh, and apparently Hannah is good again, as she says it was the only way to get all of you guys out alive. I guess. So when you escape the prison, you try to escape on an aerial tram, which leads to you getting shot down by helicopters, which is how Dima dies. But with you being cut off from the Valkyrie, all 3 of you are on your own. 3 days later, you make your way to a village, all while Hannah and Irish are still fighting until Hannah tells him a story about when she took Jinjae to meet her parents to give them hope, only for them to die shortly after, and telling that story to Irish makes him trust her. What? Well, that was sudden. So you meet up with some other Marines and they direct you to a base camp where they could get you back to your ship, but you have to fight your way through a village filled with enemies to get there.
She's Chinese intelligence and she's good people.
So she tells you a story that might or might not be true, and you just start trusting her like if you didn't try to kill her the previous mission? Do you not know what pacing is Battlefield 4? So, sudden character shift aside, you reach the camp and meet with the person in charge, Major Greenland, and she tells you need to blow up a dam first, and this mission is still going on. Man, Battlefield 4 missions can be pretty long actually. So after fighting a few more enemies, you set the charges and blow the dam up. But I don't think it crossed their mind that they actually have to get off the dam to safely blow it up. Because as soon as they blow it up, it starts collapsing right under their very feet. And then soon after they get washed away by the water. And I mean far, far away. Where were we just at? And how did we survive being washed away that far? Well, after the dust settles, you meet back up with Major Greenland, who somehow found you, and she tells you that the Valkyrie is headed into a trap, with no way to communicate with anyone. So after getting picked up by a plane, you reach the Valkyrie, only to see it under attack by the Chinese, because they think you killed Jinjae. So you have to fight your way through to Garrison since he's held up in the bridge with Jinjae, and it's only after getting there you find out that Pac is still alive, only now with a potty mouth.
Why'd you get such a potty mouth?
The reunion doesn't last long though, because after getting trapped by Chinese forces outside of the only way out, Jinjae convinces everyone to let them in to make peace, which works after the Chinese see that he's still alive, and well, they all leave, ending the battle. Until Admiral Chang starts firing at the Valkyrie in an attempt to kill everyone on board, and prevent the troops from getting out. So you, Irish, and Hannah get on a rip to a C4 on Chang's ship, and all goes well. Until, in their excitement, someone forgot to link the explosives to the detonator, which means someone needs to go back down and link it. But because they used grappling hooks, it means they have to cut their line, making it a one-way trip. So you have a choice to make, with both Irish and Hannah wanting to be the ones to go down and set the explosives. So you could either pick Irish, Hannah, or neither and just let the Valkyrie blow up. But in the end, Hannah is the one to end up going, as Irish is still alive during the events of Battlefield 2042. So you blow the ship up, killing Admiral Chang and his fleet, and presumably Hannah, as no remains could be found. And that's Battlefield 4's story. It's short, ranging around 2.5 to 3 hours, but my gosh, the missions can be long. The story is decent to even pretty good, with me even having played through it a couple of times. Even though, yeah, it has some pacing issues and questionable character choices. Some missions though could be pretty difficult, as I've explained before, and there's even some secrets laying around like dog tags, weapons, and you could even unlock them by scoring enough points, which is, I guess, enough to keep me going back to it. But of course, with it being an EA game, there's a hefty amount of glitches, with sounds sometimes being absent when spawning in a multiplayer match, as well as textures, or stuff like this. And besides that one glitch I talked about in the boat mission, I haven't really encountered any game-breaking glitches. Except for that one time where I accidentally opened up the console command during a multiplayer match and couldn't close it back up, so I had to quit the game and restart it, but that's nothing compared to how it was during launch. From some people not even being able to start it, rockets just going through objects, and people teleporting all over, crashes, and overall just not working. It had a terrible launch, even giving EA the title of most hated company in the US for the second year in a row. But that doesn't take away from where the game is at now, because yeah, most of the problems are fixed, and even though it still has its fair amount of glitches, it's a pretty fun, chaotic game to play with friends, unlike some other games. 2042.